Global Forum, Professor
Manoj
Ladwa. Welcome. Great to see you. How are you? We can hug. We aren't going to do any yoga on stage, though. Do you remember that one?
The first time we did this, we do yoga on stage.
It was International Yoga Day.
Yeah, good to see you.
So how's the week been going so far?
It's been fantastic. Last couple of years we've been virtual, and then we started easing off the virtual and getting into the physical. It's so great to see a packed room here and everybody in person. We started off with our cultural summit on Monday, which was a real cracker and real eye-opener for people who attended it. The real power that the UK and India could have in the creative industries if only we worked together.
Interesting.
And then yesterday, in partnership with Bloomberg, we had our Climate Finance and Technology Summit, where we had the COP26 President Alok Sharma. Mike Bloomberg also popped in to say hello.
Excellent.
And the Indian Environment Minister. And so we had a really great conversation around climate action and how the two countries have placed climate action right at the center of their 2030 roadmap. So really great discussions and lots of practical outcomes that seem to be coming out of this.
Really fascinating. And also, it's not just what goes on in this room, but there's also boardrooms and other places where folks are networking and meeting each other. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's crazy. There are, I think, somewhere in the region of about 15 different boardrooms that are happening one after the other in this building and elsewhere, from electric vehicles. We just had a session on the diaspora, something that I think we've got a little later on around semiconductors and how India could sort of lead the way or get more investment into that. So a whole gamut of conversations.
Women in leadership.
Yes. Earlier today, we had our UK India Women in Leadership reception, which was extremely well attended. And I made a confession that we've slipped upon our target of having 51% women speakers on the IGF stage. So I made a commitment in partnership with the 100-odd women that were there, that next year we're going to solve that to make sure that
well, we'll hold you to that. I'll be counting.
That. Absolutely.
Excellent. Anything else you're looking forward to over the next couple days?
I'm just looking forward to meeting as many people and to exchanging ideas. And you can see our logo, the India Global Forum logo, is an open speech mark. It's a conversation, and it's an open conversation. So it's only through conversation that we build understanding, and through understanding we generate the actions to achieve that quantum leap that Prime Minister Modi is expecting to see.
I love it.
UK.
Manoj, we'll get you back up here at the end of the day, but thank you so much for hosting us once again.
Thank you very much, and look forward to the conversations.
All right,
Thank
see you soon.
See you. Bye-bye.
Well, with that, we're going to move on to our first session, which, as you can see, is all about Bengaluru to London, bringing India's startup ecosystem to the UK. And with that, let's get up our first panel. Please join us. Welcome. Thanks very much. So before we get started, it's like we have to have a little sort of wedding photo. So we're going to have a quick look at the camera. Thank you very much. Well, we've got a fantastic panel. Thanks so much. Let me introduce you, and then I'll give a little bit of a spiel about what we're going to be talking about. We have coming over from furthest away from me, the chief wizard at Builder.ai, Sachin Duggal. Thanks very much for coming. We have closest to me, we've got leading unicorn investor, Prashant, partner at Accel. You began investing in Indian startups in 2004, before it was hip and cool. I had looked at my notes from Bengaluru when there were 93 unicorns in India. Now there's 103, is that right? 103. Fantastic. And we also are very pleased to have Nikhil as well, Nikhil Kamath, one of the innovators from the New India Inc. conference that I interviewed him for our Global Disruptor series. Co-founder of True Beacon and Zerodha. Over 4 million users now, Zerodha?
Yeah, I think a bit more than that.
Even more than that. And again, things tick along quite quickly, don't they? The country's largest retail brokerage platform accounts for maybe more than 18% now of India's trading daily equity volume. Well, let's start off talking about what the ecosystem looks like in India versus the UK. So, Prashant, why don't you give us a sense of how much it's changed since you've started investing, and what might surprise people in the audience?
Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really a dramatic shift that has happened in India, and one data point, and I'd like to use this whole UPI thing as, that's kind of a leading indicator of how digitized the country is today, right? And that makes it very, very fertile for all kinds of innovation on top of that. So we are on track as a country in 2 to 3 years to do 1 billion transactions a day, right? So this is from zero.
Incredible.
In these 15 years. So that's an amazing journey, the whole India stack and what we've been able to build on top of that. The other big change is the number of people from the IITs who would actually go to the US or UK, come to UK and other places. So in a typical class, 80 to 90% of all students, especially computer science, would actually, just when they finish their IIT, go to the Valley or other places. Today it's less than 30%. So
Wow.
almost 50% of the best talent is staying back to innovate in the country. That's a second big change. Third is capital, right? So one is, like I said, the first is the digital environment. The entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial talent has dramatically changed for the better. And third is capital. So I think this, what's happening geopolitically and in China, the whole China plus one need that investors see, I think has again shifted a lot of capital to India. And we are the preferred destination, which has the right domestic market, it has the right entrepreneurial talent, and the openness. I don't think there's another country that is as open for foreign capital and foreign innovation to come in, and this kind of then becomes naturally a very nice corridor for innovation, which I don't think there's any other country that offers that.
All right, so Nikhil, is that true? Nowhere else could you operate like you do with the capital, with the talent, with the openness? Do you feel like Bengaluru is the best place for you to be?
Yeah, I think above all, the number of people we have in India, I think often we don't pay enough attention to that, but a product built in the UK being sold in the UK, you can sell to maybe 60 million people, and India has like 1,400 million people. Barring India and China, it's very hard to get a market which could be that big, especially if you're a B2C business like we are. There are many other things which are unique to Bangalore. I would say more than everything else, the thing that matters to me, and I know Prashant is from Bangalore as well, is there is a lot of camaraderie. I think people in the tech space or people in the startup space do not as much as compete with each other, but support each other. And we're all one ecosystem and we're friends. And it's really nice to live there and kind of like work with these people. And I think that maybe we don't find.
Hang on, are you saying there's no competition, that it's just a very jolly, happy family when you walk down and you see your chief competitor, you just go, oh, hey, how are you? Here's some trade secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I know the British are known for being civil and sarcastic behind, but I think
I'm American.
But I think Indians have mastered, at least Bangaloreans have mastered the art of meeting your competitor, giving them a hug, and we're probably learning from you. Right?
So the other
we compete behind.
The other big difference, Nikhil, is that it really doesn't matter what money you have in that city and who you are. And I don't think there's another place, even globally today. I think Valley was like that at one point in time. So you could be just sitting next to somebody who's like a couple billion richer than you, And there's no way you'll be able to say that. And there's nothing about the demeanor or the aura, which is very different in other Indian cities. So I think there is something different about that city.
Well, speaking of other Indian cities, we can't leave Delhi out of the session, right?
Yes.
And is there friendly competition between Delhi and Bengaluru?
I think
we're so far ahead there.
so. I think what you notice in a place like Delhi is, number one, it's obviously the political capital. So from a understanding and power perspective, you'll find companies generally that we may want to partner with polarize themselves between Mumbai or Delhi, one more for financial, one more for sort of the center of the business nexuses. I think for us, why we chose Delhi and we chose Gurgaon, actually to be more specific, is there are really only 2 product development hubs in the whole of India that have the necessary heft. One of them is Bangalore, one is Gurgaon and NCR Delhi. And Delhi, I think, when you think about ease of access, so flying in and out, you think about the general cost. My personal humble opinion trumps Bangalore from that perspective. When we've just completed a study, so we run hubs in Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, Delhi, Dubai, Singapore, and NCR. So we have like a pooled view of global talent cost. And then our expert network runs in 11 time zones. We know the cost of developers just about anywhere in the world at this point. And when we do the comparison, we've actually started to see certain European cities be on par with Bangalore in terms of cost. And then you add in the fact that you have in these really intensely competitive markets, and I know that he's friends with his competitors, but if they wanted to hire the same person, they would go 10% above each other until they got the person in, which unfortunately you've seen it in India has driven wage inflation.
Right.
You don't see this in other parts of the world. So you have a ferociously competitive market that is growing so quickly. Talent is behind. And I think there's more available talent in Gurgaon and Delhi than there is in Bangalore.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about talent.
So
because
we'll beg to differ on that.
as we look to reimagine the UK-India relationship, one of the things we're going to be talking about is the free trade agreement. Now, I'd love to know on immigration and on skilled visas, bringing people to the UK, what would you like to see?
So, I think so we have the sponsorship set up, and especially because all of our international operations report to the UK, most of our management team sits here. And we have found the ability to move people from our India office to here was really easy pre-Ukraine-Russia issue.
Right.
At this point, everything has been pushed off and it's delayed. Though I would say that to get to that point of sponsorship, it's a fair amount of work. And it's not like it's automatic. So that free movement of talent is really important. And I give you a parallel, right? So we're opening a center in Sophia Antipolis, which is the largest tech center in Europe, outside of the UK. And everything from being able to negotiate tax credits to advanced visas to having it connect directly into the embassy in the regions you want to move folks in for. Like within a day, we were connected into the French consulate in Delhi. And that level of organization, I think, is what would be great, considering the UK has these amazing trade missions around the world, to be able to connect the dot between central government and then where your principal points of business are, so you can drive that back in.
Interesting. Let's talk also a little about the economic outlook, because even from a few months ago when we met together in India, it didn't feel quite so grim. Right? We have worries about inflation. We have concerns about energy prices continuing to rise. The Federal Reserve, we know, is on the move. I wonder, Nikhil, how does it feel on the ground? There's also been a lot in the news about the number of startups losing people. What does that feel like when you're doing business day to day?
Yeah, so things are bad everywhere. I would argue they're probably worst in America. A lot of the money which came into India, which went into the startup ecosystem, was money where the cost of capital today is significantly higher than it was 6 months ago. So the risk-taking ability of this capital is bound to be lower. So I would not be wrong in maybe saying that it would be harder for companies to raise money in the next year compared to how hard it was like 1 year ago or 2 years ago. But I think this problem of inflation, all the unscrupulous activities of Federal Reserve and central banks across the world will come back and bite us, not just in America, but it'll percolate down to India as well.
Interesting. Is that true? What we heard about startups not getting as much money? Are you tightening your purse strings, Prashant?
It's also a good opportunity, right? So you can, no, but I think there's always, in these cycles you see excesses of all kinds, right? So, I think Sachin, you will agree that I think there was also maybe a little bit of the equation shifting just too much towards the talent side, right? Where talent was getting a bit, cocky and lazy and pricey all at the same time. So I think a little bit of that reassessment, readjustment, I think is good for the ecosystem. That's on the talent side. I think the entrepreneurs themselves, and of course, Nikhil has always from day one run a company that has been profitable, frugal, and they've been very sensible about everything. But you can't say that for a lot of the unicorns. And I think there is still, a lot of work to be done in being able to build generationally resilient, profit-making companies in India, right? So I think we have kind of indexed too much on the unicorn valuation part and not enough on other metrics that are really more meaningful. So this kind of environment kind of resets that thinking too, and it gives the opportunity for both investors and founders to take a step back and say, what are we really building here, right? Is this really truly valuable, right? What is valuable in my company today, and how do I need to reassess my burn, my business model, my trading off growth versus profitability? All very good questions. We just did not have the time to just think about them and work and actually work on them in the last it's just rara times, right? So these moments or these periods I think are good for the ecosystem. So I think everybody kind of gets back to some real company building.
If we go back to this idea of reimagining the UK-India relationship, Nikhil, when you think about global expansion, when you think about next steps for your companies, I know you have a CEO of one of True Beacon is from the UK, right? Well, what do you think you'd like to see or you'd encourage your trade minister to be working on for a free trade agreement?
Yeah, I think at the very beginning, it should be a lot simpler for Indians to invest in the UK. It's not a simple problem because every country has capital controls of its own. India has its own, China has its own. We're not a truly convertible currency at our core, and the Reserve Bank of our country needs to manage how much dollar is coming into the country and how much dollar is going out of the country. So it's a complicated problem, but I think the red tape around allowing Indian corporations, entrepreneurs to invest in the UK and in other countries, that process has to become simpler. I would say likewise for Britishers, who want to come in and invest into India, probably simpler visa norms will help both parties. Culturally, we are so tied. I mean, the UK, India. I think India has two cities outside of India. It's Dubai in the winter and UK in the summer.
Right.
And I know more friends of mine are in London right now than they are back in Bangalore, which is
interesting.
Which is like a big thing to say. So yeah, I think
the living bridge is real.
Yeah, totally. So I think these tiny changes, which makes it easier for us to access both money here and invest money here, will make a huge difference.
Interesting. I wonder, Prashant, when you think about what you'd like to see from a free trade agreement, what's the one thing that you would add?
So I would also say that capital, I mean, if you see the amount of capital from the US that has come into India, and US and largely the Middle East. I think if you see about 90, less than 10% of our capital that goes into startups is domestic capital. 90% of the capital that gets invested in India is from the US and the Middle East. Now China, I mean, folks from China can't invest. So I think there's a great opportunity for UK to really take advantage of this huge phase in wealth building in the country, and why should it not be? Because we have, as countries, known each other, worked with each other for so long. So why is it easier for Singapore and the US and the Middle East folks to be? I think it's also about, I think people here really believing that India has arrived. So I think maybe there's a little bit of openness and belief that has to come to folks here. I think there's a little bit of, maybe like you said, the historical blurriness has to be wiped out.
Wipe it out.
Wipe it out and really take advantage of this amazing time in India.
India has arrived. Well, that could be the new tagline. You have to watch Manoj. You might see this. You might see it on the tagline for the next conference. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Let's give them a huge round of applause. We'll let you guys take a rest, not for too long. I know that you're back up on stage. Coming up next, we're going to be welcoming to the stage Mark Bartlett.